Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Muffin Farrell's Gaming. Today's video is going to be a different one. Trying out something a little bit a little bit something new, something that's different, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Today we're going to be going over the AFCON final. We're going to go over this specifically from Nigeria point of view, because they lost, and we're going to just look at what went wrong. And I think this is going to be interesting. Obviously, I watched the game, and these are just, some of my thoughts. If you haven't seen already, we lost 2-1 in Africa Cup of Nations final. The it was, I believe it was our eighth final, and we've now got lost the most finals with five and won three times. Obviously, disappointing. Um, I think we've done well up to this point in the tournament, and I think losing the final is disappointing, but I think in the end, Ivory Coast deserved it. So let's just go over some of the reasons why. Let's go over the plan and let's see how it turned out. Let's just go over it. So first of all, I think the team news was something that was quite interesting to look at. I think most of it was expected. Um, I think ex except two players, everyone started the last game. There were only two changes, from our side. And I thought the formation was the same as it's been for most of the tournament. And I think our plan in terms of how we approached the game was similar to how we've been approaching the other games in this tournament. So there was no real surprise in terms of the system or the structure. Uh, the only change that there was I believe Sanusi wasn't available for the last game. So we had Aina starting a left wing back, and then we had uh Saji Samuel starting at right wing back, and we also had Moses Simon starting at the right wing uh, for Chukwueze. And I think this was one of the main points after this game. Obviously in hindsight, seeing as we lost, and I think Chukwueze had a very poor game, compared to what I think we all know he's capable of. So I'm just gonna look at that first. So this is lineup from the previous game. As you can see, there were two changes alone. I think it's also important to note that against South Africa, I thought the performance wasn't perfect or really, it wasn't even really a noteworthy performance. I think it was definitely, one of our worst performances so far in this tournament. And I think we sort of got away with the fact that we scored early enough in the game to sit back. And I think this was one of the games where I think the situations, the sort of everything lined up perfectly for us to sit back, within sort of a 5-4-1 and just absorb the pressure and try and hit them on the counter attack. I think this game was a perfect example of where, this playing style that we look to adopt this tournament. I think this was a game that was perfectly suited for that. So I think this was a game where I didn't think we actually played too well, but I think we did what we needed to do, and I think we're unlucky to go to penalties, but obviously we did end up winning. So now we move on to that debate I was talking about earlier on, Moses Simon or Samuel Chukwueze. I misspelled his name then, I just realized it. I think this was a big debate of the whole tournament. I think everyone else in the team was sort of certain you were sure who was going to be. I think most fans would agree that with the coach's decision of who he played in every other position. But I think on the right wing, sort of in behind Victor Osimhen, this is where the debate was with Samuel Chukwueze. I think these are two players that I think are very lucky to have. I think they're two good players. I think they both give us that bit of pace in behind, and they both offer, a threat to any defense. And I think if you look at the stats here, you can see that it's quite uh tight in terms of, who's better, who performed better. Obviously, in terms of actual, none of them scored in this tournament. and I think their contributions as a whole, I think Victor Osimhen contributed a lot, even though he wasn't scoring a lot. Lookman, 3 goals in the tournament, and he played very well. And I think the right side was somewhere where I think we could have, contributed more to the team. We only scored 3 players in our team scored this entire tournament. That was Lookman, Victor Osimhen, and Troost-Ekong. One of them's our centre back, and I think if we look at this, even though I think maybe this is part of the system, you know, having just 3 players who contribute to your team, the team in terms of goals can be a bit damaging because, that it only takes, the opposition being able to deal with a few amount of players and they can limit us to very few chances. And I think you can see I've highlighted the key stat there, successful dribbles and dribble success. I've highlighted this just because the way we played, it set it up a lot of the time to isolate, the wingers. And I think it was kind of weird because I think both of these wingers uh don't operate best sort of in the right half space. I think both of them were walk a bit out like on the touchline, receiving the ball and then driving at the fullback. So I think it was a bit of an inconvenience to both of them. They had to play, slightly different than they do for their clubs. But I think when you look at it there, you can see successful dribbles, dribble success. I think, particularly in the final, I thought Chukwueze, when he picks up the ball, was trying a bit too hard to make an impact. And I think maybe it was as a response to the fact that he hadn't been playing a lot in this tournament. I think when you look at it, you can see Moses Simon, I think, is the preferred option for the coach. And I think it makes sense because, I think you can see he contributes to the team. And I thought in the final, for that 34 minutes where he came on, I thought he offered us a lot in terms of he's tracking back, he's working hard, and he gave us a bit more energy when he came on the pitch. So now we're gonna look at Nigeria's plan, just how we plan to, build up from a defense. And I thought what was interesting in this game was someone on the Ivory Coast that had a big impact was Adringa of Brighton and Hove Albion. I thought he was really good in the 1v1, I think he really limited us in terms of our creativity as well because as you can see Ola Aina at hugging the touchline and you can see Zaidu Sanusi hugging the touchline. I think you can see that there's a bit of like a difference between where the both are. You can see Ola Aina is like a bit further closer to the touchline than Sanusi is. He's a bit further up. I think this is just because with the threat of Adrenga, I think it makes sense as well from the coach's perspective. He's just decided to give him that message to just not push forward too much, because I think this leaves the spaces on the counter attack for Adrenga to really use his pace and run at our centre backs. One of our plans as well, I think our main plan in terms of getting the ball forward was working it to our right and left centre back and trying to play that pass into the half space for our wingers. And I do think that I think it worked in some games more than others. And I think in the games where our distribution wasn't on point and we lacked the creativity in terms of creating chances once we get the ball to our spaces. I think in them games it really limited us because we weren't able to we couldn't really find another way of creating chances. And I think one thing that you can also consider about this plan is that the pass has to be perfect, and the touch and the from the person receiving it, you have to receive the pass perfectly because there's a man is to receive the ball there, you got to have like your ball control has to be perfect. You got to take it on perfectly because it's a crowded area, and I think when we played against teams that sort of really crowded that midfield area, it kind of made it difficult for us to create anything, and I think this was a major issue for us in this final. As you can see, as you can see, this is an example of it. long pass to make, and as you can see, this is from around the goal kick, and the ball comes to Calvin Bassey here, who receives the ball in the half space, and he's looking to create, and as you can see, Lookman's he's gone a bit too far because the pass isn't really on whatsoever, and I think, but Calvin Bassey tries to play the pass, the execution is alright, we lose the ball, and as you can see, they've got a chance, they work with a couple of passes, and you can see Adringa's free on the left side, Ola Aina's too far up the pitch, to contain his wing, to mark the winger, and that nearly led to a goal. I think defensively as well, when we look at, sort of the plan, we sat in, we went too deep. I think at the start, the line was, you know, quite not high, but it was sort of a mid block we sat in, and I think we looked very comfortable in that because I don't think that with the five at the back, I think we handled the pace in behind on the left and the right side pretty well. And I think one thing that here is interesting to just to watch is the fact that as soon as this pass gets played into the midfielder, you can see Alex Iwobi goes to pressure immediately, and this was I think this was one of the things that we got right in that game because I think in terms of their creativity from midfield, obviously with Kessie, for fun, I think there's some really good players who can cause us danger don't you know if we don't find a way to stop them, and I think that we limited them for most of the game, and I think there were certainly parts where I think we could have done better and we could have continued it better. But for most of the game, I thought we controlled, we were able to like deal with the threat in midfield. Now we move on to the goal. I've not discussed the Nigeria goal because I thought it was almost a fluke. I think when you look at the stats, which I will in the end, you can see it wasn't really deserved, and I think really did struggle to create anything, before that goal. So I'm just gonna go to the Ivory Coast goal, and you can see it's a corner, and I think you can see, in terms of the men we've got in the box, it was actually a zonal marking system. But I think even if you zonal mark, I think with it's about seven players in the box, and the cross comes in, and Frankesi actually he runs from sort of outside the box, and he's completely unmarked. You can see him; he's in acres of space, and it really does leave, an absolutely easy finish for him. It's a diving header, and you can see the keepers come out to claim it, and he wasn't able to. I think that's a bit of an error from the keeper side as well, actually, when you look back at it, because he's come out to get it and he's got a new chance. And I think if maybe he's on his line, then he's got a much better chance of saving that. But I think you also got to look at Lookman as well. He's got a man, sort of at the edge of the box, and he's not really picking anyone up. He's got a shout. He's got to tell his teammates, that there's a man coming to box and someone's got to, you know, put some sort of pressure on him. But as you can see, we didn't deal with it well, and they score, and it was really easy for them in the end. So as you can see, this is sort of a momentum graph that shows, the momentum of the game as it went on. And as you can see, at the point at which we scored, as you can see, overall, you can see there's limited moments in the game where we were on top, and I think this was one of the issues where even if you watch the game and you had like a low insight tactically into what was going on, you could see that we weren't creating any chances, and that you know we were being dominated, and the Ivory Coast were just creating chance after chance after chance, and there was almost a sense of inevitability about the two goals, and I think even watching the game, I don't think you could say you were surprised when they scored their two goals. So looking at this graph as well, you can see just before the point where they score, you can see there's a lot of domination from them. Like they've dominated, possession wise, created chances, chance after chance, and you can see that it was always going to be, it was always coming. And I think this is probably, the worst part of sort of the feeling of losing was that you always thought it was going to happen, didn't you? And I think it's more disappointing than anything. Now I'm moving on to second goal. I think at this point you can kind of see how the game's progressed because it's 1-1. The last goal was it adds sort of the time difference between both goals is quite large actually. So when you see this, I think you can see how far back we are. The line's gone pushed back, almost about maybe 20 yards or something. And you can see the whole defense has just shifted back because I think once they scored, we sort of realized we weren't scoring again. And it felt as though there was never, really a point in the game where you felt, oh, that we were actually gonna score. There was no point in the game where you thought, you know, we might score soon. And I think from the players' point of view as well, I think as soon as that first goal goes in, they're thinking, let's just go for penalties. And obviously, Adrenga receives the ball here, isolated with the fullback, and he runs at the fullback, puts across, Halle finishes, and it's 2-1. And at the end of the day, I think Ivory Coast win absolutely deservedly because I think they were better than us on the day, and I think we never really got into a foothold in the game, and you can see that from the stats. 38% ball possession and 0.29 XG, which is I think this shows sort of how bad we actually were in the game because we had 5 shots and I think up to the point where they scored and we had to actually really attack the game, we had created almost nothing. And I think uh, we we can say that we didn't really deserve anything from the game. And obviously, we created more chances after they are 2-1 up because obviously that's just the nature of it. They're 2-1 up in the 81st minute, and you just sat back and they just held out for the win. And I think the fact that that was our only shot on target, I think was absolutely disheartening. I think because at the end of the day, we want to win the final. We know it's at Cote d'Ivoire, and we know it's going to be a tough challenge, but we still expect to show up, and I think we didn't show up at all today. And I think, if you think after looking into the game, you can see that they absolutely deserve to win. They had high XG, 18 shots to 5, 8 shots on target to 1 shot on target. We couldn't create, even one big chance. And I think that in itself sort of tells you that we didn't create anything. Maybe it was due to the formation and, whatnot, but I think you can see that in the end it was a very poor performance from us. And I think we can't be disappointed, in sort of how the game, turned out because I think the way we went there with no real intention of attacking the game. We sort of sat back and just hoped that, we would get something from the game. And I think in a final, I think to go in there with that mentality is absolutely asinine because, they've got the quality to break you down. And we knew that. So obviously it's disappointing to still play in a way where there's no real chance of us winning. So now we have to talk about the coach because I think tactics wise he got it wrong in the game. And I think, if he looks back on it, I think he'll probably admit that he got, things wrong in that game. And, there were things that he could have done better. I think I think the way we played in that game is, obviously disappointing because I think if we had gone out there and played a bit more attacking, a bit more front foot, and we still lost, then I think we would have more stake in the game. But I think going there, sitting back, having 1 shot on target, and not really creating anything of any significance, and being still end up losing, I think is just it is it's just it doesn't look good. And I think one of the main issues that I think we've got to talk about, I think, is the formation because it almost seems, I think, looking at it, that he's not sure, how he wants to play because we start with a 4-3-3 in the first game. We drew 1-1, and then we should have at the back. And, I think we got to the final, obviously, it's good, right? But if you look at uh, the qualifications to the World Cup, we're currently third, and we played a 4-4-2 in both games, and it's not gone well because we've drawn both games against teams that we should have beaten, Lesotho and Zimbabwe. And I think to not qualify for two World Cups in a row, from our point of view, is it's not acceptable. And I think whether we get a new coach or we don't, it's not more. It's more. It's not. It's less about. I'm gonna say it's less about the coach and more about sort of the system that we play. And I think if we are gonna get a coach, it's not important about the name, but more how we are gonna play. Because I think if we do keep him and he does, extend his contract, if we play sort of this five at the back against Rwanda, South Africa, and Lesotho, and there's other teams in the group, and I think if we play like that against teams that are worse than us, then I do think that we are going to struggle. And I think if he reverts back, then is it a case of do we go back to the five at the back once we do make it to a tournament? And I think obviously there's things that we have to think about, regarding getting a new coach and who is this new coach and the play style and things. But I think we do have a talented group of players, and I think I think that we should be getting to the World Cup with quality that we have, and I think we are good enough to be doing well once we do get to that stage. But hopefully, we do. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more with Froze Gaming. And hopefully, there'll be more videos like this in the future. Thank you. Cheers.